Welcome to the fine print, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Caleb Teskey, coming at you with another exhausted interview. I am just absolutely smoked this last week, doing a lot of work. But we got another great guest coming at you, in case you didn't know that. I do want to send, but before we get into that, I do want to send a couple of shout outs to my last guest, Tommy Durfee, my old homie from Lindenville, who came on from Amuleaf and Burning Tree. I'm sorry, I wrote the fucking name wrong in there and I kept saying it wrong. It's Burning Tree, but real pleasure to have my old friend on the show and catch up with him. I had a great interview with the guys from Mr. Z Craft, Ron Williams and Zach Tyson and Max Eingorn. Great interview with Dan Pomerantz from Rebel Grown. And we've got lots of good stuff coming up. As always, I got the next one's going to be Brendan from Bigfoot Flower Company, who does all the weed reviews. And I'm super excited to have Brendan on the show. And I'm not going to waste a lot of time tonight because I'm fucking exhausted. And sometimes these intros just get me. So my next guest is a guy it was kind of funny. We were supposed to meet up down in Morrisville at a restaurant and it was closed when we met there. So we just sat on the street talking for like an hour. And it was a very pleasant chat. I'm going to slap his logo up here. It's 7 Leaf Genetics. And let's bring him out, man. Is Joe Veldon from 7 Leaf Genetics right down the road. Hey, Joe, how you doing, man?
Good evening, everyone. Hey, how are you, Caleb?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's a nice night for an evening.
Yeah, nice background you got there, Joe.
Yeah, I may be a little boomy, but I figured we'd do it from the inside of my bedroom.
Cool.
And
hey, before we get into anything serious, would you mind doing a 5-minute life story for us?
Sure.
Take 10 if you need. I don't care.
No. It's fine. How far back do you want to go? So I got sent away to military academy in high school, and the deal was I got my college paid for as long as I kept a B average, and I chose Johnson State. So I moved here the summer of 1990, and just never left. Since then, I've been growing weed. And excuse me, I started that, pretty much the summer I got here, and I've just kind of taken it as far as I can. It's taken me in all kinds of different directions. In 2012, I was hired to head up a buddy of mine started a cannabis incubator out in Beaverton, I think it's Beaverton, Oregon. Outside of Portland, and they hired me to come out and kind of head up a breeding program. And my degrees are in plant soil sciences, so I have a real strong background in plant science. I did that for about 4 years, and that was when Oregon went rec. So my wife and I partnered up with one of the partners at Herbaceous, which is the name of this incubator, and we started a tier 2 rec grow out in the city of Portland, Lion Root, and we grew there we sold that company last November when we decided to start 7 Leaf as a commercial cannabis operation. We built this facility in 2019, right when COVID broke out. We were about halfway done when they were shutting the world down. And we were a hemp seed company. I do a lot of cannabis breeding. I really enjoy the breeding side of things. So we made a go of it with the hemp seed for a couple years, and just the COVID, we had 2 big clients that took about 90% of our product, and they couldn't get their workers in to harvest anything. So the hemp seed business kind of went away, but that was pretty much a year ago. So my wife and I, and it's the 2 of us that run this operation, we decided in December that we were going to go ahead and get a cannabis license and go ahead and do the rec thing. So we went and got our license, and we've been having fun ever since.
Very good. And I'm going to try to let me set up this view. I'm going to do this when I'm asking the questions, and then I'm going to switch you over there where you're answering the questions.
All right, that works.
Now, one of the things you mentioned that we talked about, and it's wild. Normally I take notes on the computer, but we met in person and I scribbled these notes on a page. So I hope they're not too disjointed, but I'd really like to ask you about your time in Oregon. You said you had a tier 2 maybe out there, and I'd like to, I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about sort of the regulatory framework in Oregon during the time that you were operating there.
Right. Well, it's funny, Caleb, because after our conversation, we had sent a couple texts back and forth, and you were interested that we were one of the few people, excuse me, that didn't really have a problem with the going through the Vermont, getting our license out here on the East Coast, as opposed to Oregon. In Oregon, it took us about 16 months.
Whoa. Dude.
We went through 3 separate inspections, not because we did anything wrong, because they kept getting fired, transported, or transferred, whatever, and they'd make us go through a new inspection. It was really, we were also in the city of Portland, so we kind of got grandfathered in as a medical grow, and we were in this weird little neighborhood that was unincorporated. So we were like one of 2 or 3 grows inside the city limits, and that may have set us back some, but it was a real struggle to just kind of keep afloat while we went through that process. You know, when we went through the Vermont process, it took us 3 months.
So like less than like 20% of the time.
Exactly. And, you know, I would say the biggest difference between here and out there, and, you know, we went through it just like, you know, just for Vermont, you know, they're setting up a new government agency, if you will. I mean, that's essentially what they did out in Oregon. I mean, they attached it to the OLCC, the liquor control. That's who kind of runs things out there, but it's still its own little organization. And, you know, any government agency is going to take time. There's going to be hiccups. We didn't quite realize the extent and the level of apathy. You know, we'd be like, hey, you know, we're 4 months into this, and now we've got to go have another inspection because we did nothing wrong and the guy got fired. And they're like, yep. And they really didn't give a shit. You know, it was just like, you know, suck it up and do it. So, you know, you did what you got to do to kind of play, you know, it's what you had, the hoops you had to jump through to play the game, right?
Yeah. And maybe you could tell us some of so if you had to compare and contrast Vermont and out west, what are some of the things that are there anything out west that was overly cumbersome or burdensome that made it hard to do business versus out here specifically?
I think the biggest difference that we've noticed is out there, it was a kind of a gotcha type attitude, whereas here it's more of, hey, you made a mistake. This is what you do. And as long as you weren't trying to do anything nefarious and all that, you know, chances are you're going to be okay, right? Whereas out there, it was like, we're coming tomorrow for a stock inspection, and you better have all your shit together, and da-da-da-da-da. And that, you know, it was just a whole different attitude. You know, the regulations out there were a little stricter. You know, when we went through our inspection here, we were overly compliant, right? So when we built the lab as a seed breeding facility, we built it with the intention that it would one day transition into a cannabis facility. So, you know, we have the security system that holds records for 90 days because that's what Oregon required. Well, it turns out Vermont only requires 30 days. So we're not going to buy a new security system because it's, you know, overly compliant. We're just going to use it. Now, again, I think we touched on this in our conversation. The security system that we had out in Oregon wasn't necessarily a security system. It was a surveillance system, right? All those cameras, those 23 cameras that we had in our 1,500 square foot greenhouse and 500 square foot dry room, you know, little chamber that we had, all of those cameras were so that the state could monitor us. They didn't give a shit whether we got robbed or not. We couldn't use that video, or we'd have to apply to the state to allow us to use the video that we took if we got robbed. That was
one of my questions, Joe, that I have written here that says in Oregon you can't use your own security footage.
And it's not that you can't use it,
or
you just
you
don't
don't
have.
own it.
There you go. You don't have possession of it. The state owns it. So, it's more of a surveillance system. So, to solve that, we put in another entire different security system, and put, another 8 cameras up on all the entrances and stuff so that we didn't even run into that. And here it's the complete opposite. I actually asked if that was the situation. We're okay. So it's things like that I think just the attitude and it seems like Vermont wants you to succeed, whereas in Oregon at best they didn't give a shit.
And that's something that a number of my other guys. Hold up, how do we do this? Wait. Wait, there we go. It seems like a number of other people have also said that have operated in other states that have said that Vermont is really, in terms of the application process, is one of the more lax states. Is that accurate in your opinion?
I would agree with that. I don't know that lax is the right word. The state gets all the information they need. The one thing I will say that the banking's a little, this green check certified that we go through is a really, that's something new on our plate, right? So in Oregon, I can't tell you how many bank accounts we had closed down when they found out that we were in cannabis, right? You just
No shit. So that was happening in Oregon as well.
Well,
they were shutting down bank accounts because
absolutely.
I've talked to a number of people in different states that have told me that same story.
Right, and and again, like this was up till last year, but what we ended up doing was working with a small credit union, essentially the same thing we're doing here, and it's funny. So I did a lot of advocacy when Vermont was trying to get their law instituted. I did a lot of testifying in front of the governor's cannabis council and this, that, and the other. And one of the testimonies that I gave was about the tiers and the level of money that you could make and how you would need to move that money around. And I don't remember his name, but he was the head of the Credit Union Association of Vermont or New England or something like that. The way that he explained it was that the credit unions work because they have a board that actually votes on it. So if their board votes to say, hey, we're going to take the risk that the feds aren't going to come in and yank our FDIC insurance, and let's face it, that's the entire hang up here, right, is this the insurance. So that's why the credit unions are working. We found one out there that worked really well for us. The credit union we work with here, they're fine. But they do another we've got to report to them as well. And that I personally find intrusive.
I personally agree. So I'd like to ask you before we get too deep into this, could you tell everybody out there what type of license that you're holding here in Vermont?
We're a tier 2 indoor.
Tier 2 indoor. And could you tell everybody what that entails, please?
So, right. So I believe I believe we're allowed up to 5,000 square feet of space. Again, I did a lot of, one of the testimonies that I gave was about the tier sizes and the level. I basically showed how much money you could make at 500 square feet, 1,000 square feet. And I basically pitched them that 1,500 square feet was probably the smallest for a tier 1, right? That should be the height. They moved it at 1,000. I built my facility in between that time, and I thought they were going to go with the 1,500. So I ended up building essentially just over a tier 1 size. I don't mind it. I've got plenty of room to grow. So I run a 1,200 square foot flower room. The room I'm in here, my veg room, is about 600 square feet, and then I've got a 600 square foot breeding room.
So you talked to the state about this stuff, the CCB maybe, or something like
this was before all that. This was the Governor's Cannabis Council. This was the
Marijuana Commission back in 2017.
Oh yeah, back in the day.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
So because I had experience, I was out in Oregon. I was always a Vermont resident. I never moved to Oregon. I basically commuted, right? So from 2012 to 2019, I basically flew back and forth across the country, 7-8 times a year, and kind of help manage. We had a partner that lived on site, but that was our gig, my wife and I's gig.
So I wanted to ask you. I feel like you mentioned usually I got the 5-minute life story, and now I run through a list of similar questions that I ask everybody about, like how many employees you have. It sounded like maybe just you and your wife.
We just hired our first employee. So we're very excited. She's a phenomenal cultivator. We've known her for a while, and she's been running the show out at a farm in Maine, and she's ready to come back home to Lamoille County, and we're happy to have her.
Awesome.
So,
and sorry to cut you off. Was there more?
That was it.
Okay, cool. I would like to ask you about your cultivation techniques. I've talked to a lot of cultivators in Vermont. Some of them doing cocoa, some of them doing living soil. I'd like to know what you're doing. I'd also like to know maybe what kind of lights you're running and things of that nature.
Sure. So when we were making seed, I was running just straight Paralite. When you make seed, you're not necessarily looking for oil content, right? And granted, we made a lot of oil, but you just want a nice, healthy plant. When you're growing cannabis for the rec market, that's what you're growing. You're not interested. The plant's more or less a vehicle, right? You want the oil on the outside. That's what's giving you the effect that you're looking for. So we first started in soil in 5-gallon buckets. And we'd fill the room up and do one full crop. We've morphed into, when we started growing rec for like just cannabis, I wanted to do something a little cleaner. So we run 6-inch cocoa cubes, the cocoa core cubes, and we run advanced nutrients right now. I'm trying to get away from the salts. Again, our whole thing is, it's just my wife and I running this until Mariah gets here. But it's basically just my wife and I running this.
Can I ask you a question? Is there any particular reason that you're trying to get away from the salts, as you just said?
Because I have to add acids to help control the salts. Right? So if I listen to Big Mike and the advanced guys, they want me running at like, I don't know, it's like an EC of 2, right? So that's, 1,800 parts per million. You're going to get some sort of salt buildup, right? So you got to run hydrozyme. You got to run an acid there to kind of break that down so it doesn't build up in your lines. So we do micro drip irrigation, right? So everything's automated. We have dosatrons. So everything's kind of automated for us. We're not there hand watering everything, right?
For people who don't know, would you mind explaining what micro drip irrigation is?
Sure. So we have a machine called a dosatron. And it can we take a field trip?
Yes. You please explain the dosatron as well if you'd like.
Well, I mean, I can walk out to the dosatron and show you.
Go ahead. Yeah, okay. Please. That'd be awesome. Hell yeah. Oh, I'm glad I called you, Joe.
Yeah, right. This works better too. So, all right, there's my dosatron.
Here, and please tell us about the dosatron. Tell us its function and what it does, please.
Okay, so there you go. Okay, so can you see it? Yeah. Okay, so this here is my basically the controller that runs the water. Right. The nice thing about this system is it doesn't run on electricity, so it runs on water flow. So in each of these dosers, each of these tubes, is a tube that goes into a piece of fertilizer, right? My Bloom A, my Bloom B, my carbs, and my pH regulator. I can adjust that to whatever level I want, and it's all monitored.
Yeah, take it right up there, Joe. Yeah.
Right, so you can see, and this isn't, my pH is much lower than that. What happens is when the system runs off, water backs up into the system, and it
what are the 3 numbers there that we're looking at on that?
So the top number there is my EC, right? Your electroconductivity, which is 2.2, which is right about 1,800, 2,000 parts per million. The second degree is the water temperature. The third one's the pH.
And are those numbers right where you want them to be?
So, like I said, the only one that's off is the pH, and it's not really off. It tends to jump about 1.5 when the system's not running. The water backs up and it kind of just mixes into.
Okay.
This is the meter right here, and it just kind of mixes into that. So this will go once
So
it starts running.
Yeah, how does this system work? Maybe you could explain what that system is doing for your
Right.
for
So
your
all
growth.
it's doing is it's taking the water. Fuck, I'm spinning around here.
No, you're good, dude. This is great. Thank you.
So here, I'll just flip it on. Flip it on for a sec. So what's cool about it is it makes a really neat sound. Give it a sec. Can you hear all that? The clicking?
It sounds like someone playing the spoons.
Exactly. So, and they sync up sometimes. It's fun. So,
Oh,
anyway,
they go in and out of phase.
Yeah, exactly. There's there's a little spring here. The water pushes it, and when it builds up, it pops back. When it pops back, that creates a suction, and it pulls a little bit up in the tube.
And
you adjust
and that's
how much.
and that's how you water your plants.
That's how we water our plants.
Yeah. Is there anything else going through those lines other than water?
Well, each of those tubs have fertilizer in them.
Yeah, cool. So you're feeding water and fertilizer to your plants at the same time.
Yep, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, please, Joe, talk to me like I'm dumb. I need that tonight. Yeah.
So well, we know you're not dumb, Caleb. But
yeah, well,
it's what we found is it's a really efficient system. The one reason that we're trying to shift away from fertilizers is I run advanced nutrients. I'm on the Friends and Family program, and they're wicked expensive. So, I can't imagine retail what these things run. So, it's a whole thing. I just started running, it's called Sixth Coast, and they're a super soil. A buddy of mine out in New York has won a bunch of awards using it. And he's like, hey, start running this and see what you like. So, for me, if I can do that and not have to use any salt-based fertilizer, all the better. I will say that with the advance, we started running the Mike's OGT, and we're getting just 25, 27%, 3.5% terps, like just some great rock star numbers. So it's kind of hard to argue with the results,
Yeah. Can I ask you this? Do you guys treat your water at all? Do you do RO?
No. So it turns out that here in Hyde Park, they don't treat their water unless there's a contamination. So or like there's some sort of spill or something. So our water comes in at about 6.5 pH and 36 parts per million. It's spectacular water.
Yeah. Were you guys affected by the flooding at all that happened a couple of months ago?
Our home was affected. I live right on the Kenfield Brook, so we got our house got pretty fucked up, but the grow here was okay.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad the plants were okay at least.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the plants are. So, and to get back to your initial question, so I run in my bedroom. I'm running high photon flux, which are just a standard, 1,000-watt LED, grid. In my flower room, I run magnetics, which are liquid cooled. They're super efficient. They're hyper LEDs.
Those are great lights. From what I've read, those are killer lights. And I know some of them. I know the guys at least at Clean Cannabis. Those magnetic lights, I think, have a heat recapture system that will heat their radiant flooring. Is that accurate?
They do. So I designed the Clean Cannabis facility.
Hey.
So that's one of my designs. And that's one of the reasons they're running magnetics, and you're absolutely right. One of the great things about that is it takes all the heat away in the form of hot water. So if you have a radiant floor heating, you can divert that heat into your radiant floor. It cools down, runs right back through cooled water, cooled liquid, runs right through your lights again. So we reduce our electric bill by about 35%, maybe 40%.
Well,
Because of that. Our lights run at about 118, 125 degrees.
what does your electric bill look like? Can I ask you that?
Sure. So all in, we run about $3,500 a month, $3,300 a month.
So
We
what, 50,
run
50, 50 grand a year ish,
ish,
40,
yeah,
45 or something.
and we run 50, probably close to 60,000 watts all in.
Wow.
You know, I've got 36 1,200 watt lights there, and another 16,000 watts here. So yeah, something like that.
So you designed that facility, because I've been down there, and I got to tell you, in terms of indoor facilities I've visited in Vermont, I believe that is a state of the art. That's how I would describe it.
It is state of the art. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And so you had a hand in that.
I designed it for them. Yeah, I mean they paid it, but they hired me to come in. When Devin and Derek first started, they were looking to grow aquaponics. They wanted to grow fish, and they were going to raise fish and sell them as well, and complete the loop. And that was the whole trying to be environmentally sensitive and kind of close the loop thing. And I chatted with them, and we had a meeting, and I explained to them that it just doesn't work that way. That it was going to be more hassle than it was worth. So we reconfigured their ideas, and not their idea, but their how they were going to execute it, and that was what we came up with, was that facility, and it is it's something else. It's a really nice spot.
Yeah, and I noticed they had the dosatron and the agnetics alikes, and so
Yep,
cool.
they run advanced nutrients.
And here, every 20 minutes or so, I slap this up. Hey, I'm with Joe Veldon from Seven Leaf Genetics here in Vermont. And shameless plugs. I'd like to ask you about the, you talked about the genetics. It seems like the genetics maybe should be the focus of this conversation, because you're Seven Leaf Genetics. And a couple people have asked me, I just texted you this earlier. Some folks said maybe Joe has the Elvis. And I'd love to know about that, man, because genetics to me is a very new concept. I always thought these names of the herbs were just made up bullshit. But it turns out
a lot of it is.
But it turns out a lot of that traces the lineage of these strains way back to their roots. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, Joe.
Sure. So, do you want me to speak to the Elvis? Do you want me to speak to genetics in general?
Both.
Okay, sure. So the Elvis, we got that early '90s. I don't remember it being called the Elvis, but that's definitely what it was. One of our first breeding attempts was my sophomore year of college. Summer of '91, '92, and we crossed it. I had this hippie friend with dreadlocks that was in Amsterdam over the summer, and he snuck a bunch of beans back up in one of his dreadlocks. And back then, you went to jail for a long time for that shit. So it was a big deal that he brought Amsterdam genetics back. So we had some plants going. They were all regular seed. There was no such thing as a feminized seed back then, and we grew them, and this one was just some rock star. So we made a cross, and we crossed it with that Elvis cross. So my Elvis is different than the original Elvis, obviously, but it's no secret, from all through the '90s and early aughts, I was selling weed around here, and if you bought the Elvis around here, chances are that was that strain. So still got it. There's 3 or 4 other people that I know around town that still have it, still grow it. I actually just saw a plant of it outdoor. It's Saturday. I was at a house party and saw it Saturday. It was gorgeous. So, the nice thing about that plant, it holds up outdoors. And that's a nice segue into genetics in general, especially the THC genetics because
Yeah, and this is really what I wanted to talk to you about, Joe. I mean, your 7-leaf genetics, and
right,
and pardon me for saying this, but I've talked to some other folks who have told me that you should talk to Joe Veldon about genetics. So I was really hoping we could dive into this
we can
because,
dive right into it.
straight up, I thought that all the names of these weeds were just made up by idiots, but a lot of the names are made up by nice crosses of different genetics. And you seem like the dude to speak on this, and I'm gonna shut myself up right now and let you go.
Well, I guess what I would say is coming from the hemp world, it's completely different. So in the hemp world, if I'm going to sell a farmer 100,000 seeds, he's going to want essentially 100,000 plants that look the same, act the same, are going to produce the same, are going to give him the same oil content, are still going to be, compliant and all that. The THC side of the game, it's the exact opposite. People are doing 6-plant, 10-plant pheno hunts, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. When I do a pheno hunt, it's usually 1,000 plants. So, I don't think unless you're running an F1 or an F2, I try and breed variety out of it. Whereas with the THC game, people want
Joe,
variety in it.
Can I stop you? Can you
Absolutely.
tell people at home what an F1 and an F2 is? Because
Sure.
I'm just learning about this stuff too. And for people that don't know, I'd love if you would explain that and then continue on with your story.
Sure. So the F in F1, F2, or F7 stands for filial. And all filial means is progeny, right? So all it is a cross. It's you take a male and a female. So, all right. So a cannabis plant is known as a dioecious annual, which means it has a male and a female, and it grows in one full season, in 1 year. That's its life cycle. So the way that it continues on as a species is it pollinates the female, that drops seeds, those seeds harden off, they grow the next year, same thing happens over and over and over. So when we start getting into commercial operations and we're making strains, right, we're taking this strain here and this strain and we're crossing them. So we cross that and we get a variety, and this gets into genetics, and you can do it on a Punnett square essentially, but you're basically looking at, you could make a cross and you grow out 25 plants, and you'll have 5 different phenotypes, right? 5 different plants that look different, that grow different. And when I mean different, and again, this is another thing that I think a lot of the THC market doesn't pay attention to, but as a grower or as a breeder, I pay a ton of attention to is root mass, plant structure, stalk structure. I don't want, the Skywalker OG is one of my favorite plants, but that thing's all squirrely. Go type, Caleb.
How do you pay attention to root mass? How do you monitor that?
So it's not a monitor going through it. It's more of cut it off, weigh it, see what you're getting.
Oh, so on the roots?
Right. So again, so root mass is mostly just the root ball, right? But you can how thick those roots are.
Oh, hey. Oh, sorry. I lost you for a second there, Joe.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry. Yeah, no, you're back. Go ahead.
Okay. So root mass is just like the size, the weight, the density, the size of the roots. That all takes into root mass. But commercial THC growers, they're growing for the THC market. Excuse me. That's essentially what they're growing for. I mean, they're growing more for terpenes now too, but essentially it was getting your THC numbers up, right? Well, as a hemp breeder, and let's face it, hemp is the same exact plant as a cannabis plant, right? It's just a different chemovar. So for me, when I put, I grow. So what I do 500 rooms 500 square feet I harvest every month. That's 220 plants in that room. So my population, when I put them in there, I want them all the same exact size.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want variations, this, that, and the other, because I want my trellises to work. right? I want them all feeding the same way. So I want the root mass about the same size. I want them filling up those little cubes. I don't want little scraggly ones, right? I don't grow little scraggly ones. They're just a waste of time. They're never going to get there.
Nobody wants the scraggly ones.
No one wants a scraggly one. So anyway, so I pay attention to a lot of those things, especially like outdoor hemp, disease resistance. That's a huge thing that, people are really going to get hurt this year with the mold and the powdery mildews and all that.
The septoria.
Yeah, leaf symphoria, brown spot, like boitress, all of it. It's not, so there are, and the Elvis was a great plant, did not get brown spot. The Elvis liked a couple snowfalls. It made it stronger. It was like, yeah, come on, bring it. So, there's, so I pay attention not just to THC and terpene profile, but also how the plant structure and how it's going to grow and its disease resistance. Not so much disease resistance here because it's indoors and it's a pretty controlled environment. But outdoor, that's definitely a consideration for sure. So anyway,
do you do any outdoor?
No, we had, my wife and I started a research project. We grew about 80 different varieties of hemp, and we got robbed like 4 times. And it wasn't a moneymaker for us. It was research essentially.
Yeah. So you have done outdoor.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
I gave up growing THC outdoor about 15 years ago when deer slept on my fucking crop. But it's much easier to do it indoors. That's what I learned.
Can you tell us about sort of installing HVAC systems, dehumidifiers, stuff like that? I'd really like to hear about that. One of the first people to really inform me on that was Nick Matei from Forbin's Finest.
Yeah.
And I'd really love to hear your take on that, Joe.
Well, it's your environmentals are, essentially the third leg of cultivation, right? A lot of people try and chase VPD, but if your environmentals are right, your vapor pressure is just where it should be. So generally
what is it? Hey, will you stop and tell us what VPD is, please?
Okay, I'm sorry, yes. So vapor pressure deficit is essentially, all right, so the way that a plant...
Yeah, sorry, dude. You got a lot of good points. And I'm gonna stop you and ask follow-up questions on all of this shit. Yeah, VPD, please.
VPD, vapor pressure deficit. So the way that a plant feeds itself is through pressure, right? Negative pressure. So you put, essentially, initially, it's a negative positive reaction, right? And it brings moisture into the plant. Once it gets in the plant, it's basically a suction system that moves that water up through the stalk, up through the plant, and out through the leaves. The leaves have openings on them called stomates. Stomates are just that, they're openings. And that's how the plant breathes. So if you're out there and the air is very dry, it's middle of winter and it's 15% relative humidity outside, the air is very dry. So when that plant goes to breathe, there's a ton of space for that moisture to go into, right? The air is not saturated. Whereas if you go out in the middle of summer after a rainstorm and it's 100% relative humidity and you're just dripping in sweat, and it's just, it's moist out. Well, if a plant's trying to breathe, then there's no room for that moisture that's in the plant to actually leave the plant and go into the air. So that whole process there is called vapor pressure deficit. The reason that it's important is because it tells the cultivator how fast, how efficiently the water is moving through the plant. Water meaning the nutrient solution that you're using, at least the way that we grow. So that's essentially what VPD is. But going back to your original question about environmentals, that's what you're trying to control. You do that through dehumidification, humidification, and air conditioning, sometimes heat. So AC, they say that a gallon of water for dehumidification, the general rule is a gallon of water in is a pint or is a gallon out. So if you have or it's a pint out. So it's like if you have 500 gallons in, you need a 500 pint dehumidifier to pull all that out.
Yeah.
Right. So
Have you
I
worked
like
with
to make
it?
sure that.
Sorry. No,
Oh,
go
it's
ahead.
okay. I like to make sure that I overgrade everything by about 20%. And I like to add redundancy to it. So rather than have one big unit at the end of a room, I'll have 3 units across so that if one goes down, I'm not.
Yeah,
Totally out of line.
a little redundancy.
Redundancy. We use, especially as an indoor grower, we use this equipment hard. It's used all the time. I can't tell you how many energy companies, I try and tell them, I'm going to be running my ACs in the middle of January. They're like, well, it's 20 below zero. And I'm like, yep. And it's 90 degrees in there. I don't run an AC. So tell me I need to run my ACs. And that's a hard thing for people to wrap their heads around up here.
Yeah. Hey, have you worked with Efficiency Vermont at all?
I have. I worked with them a lot.
Would you mind talking on your relationship with them at all?
Sure. They came to me. This was during COVID. They knew who I was through my testimony and my activity with the State House and working with getting the law passed. And basically, it came up with the Agnetics was the first lights that they came up with. The guys from Clean Cannabis, I had already had mine installed, and they were about to start buying theirs. And they were going to go through the process of getting it through Efficiency Vermont. They didn't have data on it, so I gave them basically a virtual tour, like essentially what I'm doing today with you guys, and walked them through the system, showed them our electric bills and all that, and from there they were able to give a formulation for the rebates that you can get using Agnetics lights. I work with the Research Innovation Institute. I do some stuff with them. And they work with Efficiency Vermont as well. It's all energy consumption. An indoor grow is energy, it uses a lot of energy. There's no way around it. So anything we can do to reduce that, all for it.
Yeah. Oh, and boy, I've got a few more questions for you, Joe.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to, and I'm hoping at the end, what you're going to do is maybe walk us through what's behind you. That's gonna be my ending question. But I have a scribbled note here on my notepad that says CO2 enhancement.
Yeah. So CO2 enhancement is, I wouldn't call that one of your environmentals. It's a tertiary gas. It acts a lot like nitrogen. In the old days, and by the old days I mean before LED lightings were the standard, I wouldn't run, CO2 acts like nitrogen, right? So it acts like it makes the plant grow. And when you're growing buds, you don't necessarily want that elongated growth, right? You want nice compact swelling of the plant. So I never ran CO2 enhancement in my flower rooms. I always ran them in my bedrooms because that's where I was looking to get a big, fat, bushy bush. With the advent of LEDs and just the sheer power that they have, especially quality ones, the plant metabolizes faster. It just does. And if you don't use CO2 enhancement, you're not getting the full potential out of the plant. Yeah. So I definitely use CO2 enhancement now. Any type of LED operation that we set up.
How do you do CO2 enhancement? What do you use? Like a gas tank?
Like everything else. So mostly you just go get a can of gas, like it's a big cylinder. They have, depending on the size of your operation, you use 2 or 3 cylinders. There's a regulator on it, and then there's a meter in the room that just tells you, how much CO2 is in there, right? So, if you wanted, essentially, I like to run it at about 1,200 parts per million. You want it running so that if you walk in there and you close the door, you're in there for 5 minutes, you know it, and you're getting a little dizzy. And that's how you know your CO2 is right.
Yeah. If you get
So,
dizzy, that shit's good.
yeah, exactly. Open the door. So, but yeah, so CO2 enhancement's definitely, I use it now in the flower room where I didn't. In my bedroom, I'm not having any issues. So, if I was trying to speed things up or make bigger plants in my bedroom, I'd probably have it in here as well. I just haven't seen the need for it. And one of the things I learned being in this game long as I have is you don't need every new thing down the pipe. The old school works.
How old are you, Joe?
I am 55.
55.
And I've been growing weed since 1990.
Hell yeah.
What is that,
So
30 something? 30 something years.
33. Yeah.
33, yeah.
A triple decade. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Can I ask you this, Joe? One question I used to ask everybody that I've been forgetting to ask everybody is, if you could go back and write the legislation, is there anything that you would throw out or anything that you would keep or anything you like or anything that you would change if you were the man in charge that had control of that?
Well, I think that's a whole other show.
Well, we can do a whole nother show.
Right, exactly. Well, if that's the case, you would have my wife Victoria on because she's the one that walked us through both states' regulations.
Do you want me to
She's
get
the
your
one
wife
that-
on? Because you sent me the emails from her email.
Yeah, well, she's the CEO, so Seven Leaf Genetics VT is.
Yo, that's why I put you as co-owner, Joe. I was like, you told me that your wife was involved, and I didn't want her to feel left
Yeah, no,
out.
she is. Yeah, she's the boss. I do. It's funny. She's a great cultivator in her own right.
Really?
The way that I look at it is, I'm more of a cook. She's more of a baker. So I go in there, and if I got it in the range, it's fine. If everything's in the range, it's good. Whereas she's like, nope, it's 5.8. It's 5.8. So it works. We're a good yin and yang that way. We cover each other's bases.
Yeah, cool. And I've met a lot of husband and wife teams in the cannabis industry here in Vermont. And personally, and this is my opinion, I always have to say that. This is my opinion. I love to see that.
Yeah, no, we've been doing it together for a long time. And, it was nice when she handles a lot of the sales. But when we were in Oregon, we sold to Nectar Market. So it's different out there, right?
Yeah.
So we sold to basically a chain of dispensaries that had, I think when we left, they had 16 dispensaries. So they bought everything we grew. But she was the one that set that deal up. She was the one that would fly out there when we harvested and negotiate it and get it done. Right. And I would, so I'm more plant specific. That's where my degrees are. That's where my passion is.
How long y'all guys been together, Joe?
So we just celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary about a week ago. So, happily married.
Fuck yeah. What do they call that? Is that wood or diamond or fucking
this guy here. So that's military. That's a golden diamond.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I got sent away to military school like the goddamn shit Finkelstein kid. So, and that's a Cheech and Chong reference if you don't know. I was one of those kids. So that's what that is. I earned that one.
Yeah.
My wedding ring is wood though.
That's
Hawaiian
dope.
Wood or something.
That's dope though, to have a wife that will help you in your endeavors.
And is good at it. She's where I'm generally excited if someone will just buy my weed or do business with me. She's like, no, you have value, and is able to help quantify that and lift me up when I need to. And it's a good partnership. It really is. We're excited. Yeah, we're excited. We're Oregon was a C+, a B. Right, yeah. We got out and didn't lose our shirts. In Vermont, we're very hopeful. we're building a really nice network of dispensaries that we're working with, and it's nice.
Would you like to name the dispensaries you're working with?
Well, sure. So Magic Man, love Meredith and Nick. Ralph down at the pot shop is wonderful. We're going to go make a delivery to the mothership or the mother plant up in St. Albans.
St. Albans,
So
yeah.
love those guys. So yeah, and a bunch of other ones, but those I'll name.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, we do I guess this goes way back to lily padding, back to what you're asking, but we do a harvest every month. And we like to sell out that harvest. Like we're on the rotation where it's cured up a month. So every month we basically sell a crop. And we don't like to have stuff sitting for 2 and 3 months in our storage room. We want it out. So we're purposely not dialing ourselves down so that we're not going too big too fast.
Can I ask you about the testing and the product registration?
So sure. Testing is testing. It is completely different than the West Coast. In the West Coast, the analytics company came to you. They did a core sample. They locked your container.
Oh,
and then they sent you
in California. They sent someone out to collect the samples from the cultivator.
Same thing in Oregon. Yep. So that's what they did in Oregon. So to be able to go and send in tops, right? Because no one's sending in their bottoms. You're sending in, you're not sending in a wide variety. We don't. We send the tops in, right? Well, if we got Rockstar popcorn buds on the side that are just dripping, those always end up really well too. But so that's that's as far as analytics goes, that's definitely different. We use BIA and we use Onward. They're great.
You've used both of the labs.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And how do you feel about their performance?
I've got no complaints. We're in and out in a week. I talked to Callie at Onward. I was a little worried about, we're dropping off 3 strains a month, right? So we spend quite a bit of money with them. And I was worried that when the harvest came, if there's, 1,000 people in the queue, are we going to be 2 months before we can get numbers?
Can you tell me how much a full panel test costs at either of these labs?
So if you do, I think the water moisture, I think is like 35. I think the potency is 85. I think the terpenes is the same. I think that's about 80, 85. And then the pesticide panel, I think is like 260.
Ooh.
And the pathogens is probably another 100 and something. I think
the pesticide is the most expensive one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
It takes the longest as well.
So it takes longer for them to process the samples than a THC.
I think it's just I'm not sure, so I can't speak to that.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it takes longer. It just seems that's what takes longer. And then as far as product registration, it's funny. So here's what happened to us. We were all excited. We went and we found these little tins that we liked, and we spent hours working on a little label and getting it all dialed in. We sent it off to product registration. And then by the time we got approved with the product registration, we had sold out of our product. So we're like, all right, this time we're going to be a little more ahead of it, and this, that, and the other. And we were more ahead of it, and it was still 3 weeks to get product registered, and we were sold out before we got products. So we bought all these tins. I got thousands of labels that I can't use. And so at this point, we sell bulk only. And like I said, by the time the next harvest is in, we're sold out of our previous harvest.
Yeah, and that was one thing I was also going to ask you about was the packaging. And
We
see,
let the dispensaries do it. If they want to white label with us, that's great. I work a lot with the guys from Gaston. We might do something with them. We were talking a little bit.
I hope they're listening too. Ebo, I'm really hoping to get at you. I've been trying to get at those guys forever. I think that would be a phenomenal interview as well.
Yeah, they're good guys. I've known both of them for a while now.
Yeah, cool. And
So
Vermont royalty.
yeah, and they're so I would say we're going to start running. We're going to start making pre rolls. My wife makes a. Do you know the sativa? I told you the sativa bitch story, right?
Did you? I don't know. Tell it again, and I'll
Anyway,
cut you
so
off if it sounds familiar.
my wife is known as the sativa bitch, and
Oh,
basically that came about because 15 years ago I was selling her weed through a mutual friend, and I wasn't really labeling. I had A grade and O grade. I kept the A. O grade was for everybody else. I didn't keep the strains separate or anything like that. I just kind of put it all in one package. And our mutual friend would always come back and she'd be like, "Oh, my friend Victoria wants to know, is it a sativa?" I'm like, "Who is this girl that keeps asking about a sativa?" So whatever. This goes on for like 2 or 3 years. One night we're out at the shed watching the Eames brothers having a couple beers. And I'm like, "Hey, Dre, we're gonna go out and check the tire pressure. Do you want to come?" She's like, "I don't, but my friend Vic probably wants to go." So this beautiful girl comes out to, we're all going there. I'm packing a bowl. She leans over and she's like, "Is that a sativa?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're the sativa bitch." And she's like, "Oh my God, I think I am." So it turns out that she's the sativa bitch. She's my sativa bitch, and I love her. So she loves the sativa. It's why we have 2 or 3 of them on the docket. And yeah, the Marge's iguana, our newest line, our newest strain is we're going to be releasing here in a month or two. That's all her, and that is.
Joe, I didn't mean to cut you off. Carry on. Yep.
No, I was just going to say that was about it.
I was gonna say. Would you care to tell us what type of cultivars that you're cooking up?
Well, we're doing a couple different sativas, just because there's a big demand for it,
and because of her.
People just really like that energetic go. So we're doing that. I'm working with a lot of Kyle from Sherpa Seeds.
I don't know if I know who Sherpa Seeds is. I don't know if I've ever talked to Kyle.
Okay, so he's a buddy of mine. He does he does this stuff called Famunda cheese that we're gonna run. I ran that a couple years ago. It is just stank. So we've got that on tap. I work with the guys out. All my peeps are from LA and San Diego, like my California peeps. So I work with a couple guys down there that send me just some wonderful stuff that's like, the latest greatest out in LA, and if it works for me, it works, and most of them have been winners.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a couple. Nothing that the Marge's Iguana was our big one, our launch, and Merlin Mints was my second one, and that's Cadillac Man Kush Mints. And those, we're going to just let them sit and get in the market for a while, get people used to
them. Can you tell us, before I forget to ask, usually I look this up, but I like to ask everybody, where is your flower found in dispensaries or your products? Do you have a list of that off the top of your head?
Well, those dispensaries that I listed were in, Winooski Organics, Cloud 9, the herb shop, or the herb closet. I said the pot shop. We're going down to see Ratu on Saturday.
Ratu's, yeah, I like Christian. I got to meet him a few weeks ago. He seems like a really nice guy. And his wife, I can't remember her name.
And then we were talking with the girls at Craft Cannabis there in Mo Vegas, and Tyler's building there.
Yeah, I'm still wondering when they're going to open. I go down there. I stole a sticker off their wall. It said, "Take a sticker and hit us up on Instagram."
I reached out to them end of last week, and we're trying to get together end of this week to show them some product and stuff. So I'm
Okay.
guessing they're pretty close.
Maybe you could come over and say hi to me. I'm like 2 blocks down the road.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
I'm riding. I got that e-bike, so I'm riding that thing all over the place.
Is there any other dispensaries you're in that you'd like to mention? I'm running low on shit. I got a couple other questions, but I wanted to get at that first.
Not that I can list off the top of my head.
Cool. So let me ask you this.
I'm sorry. Zen Barn, 31 Degrees North, those guys.
Oh, okay, cool. And I remember when I met, you were wearing a 31 Degrees North hoodie or a shirt or something.
Cambridge Cannabis. I'm just on the spot. It's.
I know you're at Cambridge. I was hoping you'd say that because I know I saw your flower over there.
Well, so Dusty wanted terms, and we don't do terms. So I'm not sure how that
testing.
I'm not sure how that plays.
How much is the terp test?
The terp test? Oh no, I said terms. Terp test is $85.
Oh, okay. I thought you said terps. And I know some dispensaries want.
No, yeah, I was say some dispensaries do, some don't. That's not something that we do, and we've never done it, and I don't think we ever will.
Okay, cool. All right. Look, Joe, I'm running out of shit here. I wanted to ask you if we missed anything big, because I know that you've, as you said, you helped design the clean cannabis facility, and that sounds like some really cool shit. Have you helped design any facilities elsewhere in the country or anywhere else? Because I really love that shit, and it seems like people really look to you as someone as a source of information.
I've worked on design teams on a couple of facilities out in Oregon. The guys at Agnetics are really, I've become friendly with them, and they've introduced me and brought me to facilities that I probably, that I was in all of. So, it was those guys that got me into Cap's place. I went out and saw Cap Later's place a couple years ago. So while he didn't know I was there, I still got to, it just, those guys, they definitely opened some doors, and I get some good genetics from them. They're good peeps, and I can't say enough.
Mm-hmm. Now, Joe, would you take us for? Oh, we're freezing up. Are we freezing? Oh, there we go. Can you still hear me, Joe?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm basically out of shit here. I'm gonna slap up one more time. I always do. I'm with Joe Veldon from 7 Leaf Genetics here in Vermont. And I want to thank you so much for your time here tonight, Joe.
Hey, it's been fun, Caleb. Like I said, it was a nice chat with you earlier in the summer, and this has been a wonderful little chat.
And I'm hoping before we get out of here that you'll maybe walk us through what's behind you.
Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Yeah, take me for a walk before we get out here, Joe.
All right.
And tell us about your hoodie.
Oh, so my wife made this for me.
Your wife made that. She made that.
She made that. I mean, she didn't make this patch. She bought the patch, sewed it on the hoodie for me.
That's
we
dope.
bought the. God, I look fucking really stoned.
You look tired, Joe. You look like you've been working a lot.
My wife's been gone for a week. We're dealing with some family stuff, and I've been burning in at both ends. So it's been it's been a long week. But so anyway, we got this at the farewell shows, the Fairly Well shows out in California. So we didn't go to Chicago, we went to Cali, which is a much kinder scene. Cuttings. Hey. This is like the January harvest, and then essentially these are the guys I put in pots or put in cubes like 3 days ago, and they're coming right along. These will go into flower about a month from now, and then you hit the wall, and then these are all gummies, These came in great. They run about 27%. And then over on this side here, let's see, we've got, sorry. These guys here, these are the Marges Iguana. This is that super sativa we've been doing. And you can see what I like is they're nice and uniform. Everything's about the same size. These are some OG Kushes that I'm running from. I got these from LA. It's supposed to be the original OG cut. We'll see. I'm doing a little test, see how they work for us. Again, some more. So this is the test. These are the transplants I did today. I did a row in cocoa cubes, and then I did a row in soil. The soil is that 6 Coast, and I'm thinking about switching from a cube to a pot with soil in it. So we're going to see.
So you're trying similar genetics in different growing mediums.
Exactly, to see if I like it and see if I want to do something. If I want to switch from the cocoa cubes and the salts to a super soil that, I've got to lightly amend towards the end. So, and then these are the Merlin mints. And these are just a rock star strain. Runs 24% and about 3% terps. And then, then this is probably one that we're going to run for next year for our 24 season. That's the guava slurry cane. Then there's my caps cut right there. There's my mom.
What did you say? Guava slurricane?
Guava slurricane.
Yeah, sorry, I mispronounced it there. But
no I might have mispronounced it too. So
I've tried some different guava strains and some swamp slurricane and some different slurricanes, and so you've brought them together.
I've done, yeah. And those are my the Merlin's mints, the Marges Iguana are my crosses. Everything else is different, different people's crosses. But that guava slurricane, all the slurricanes I've smoked have been absolute rock stars.
Joe, I got to tell you, I'm out of shit. This is the time of the night. Hold up. Here we go. Boom. I'm out of shit, Joe. That was all my questions, which is the time of the night where I ask you if we missed anything, or if there's any shameless plugs or shout outs that you would like to give. Now is the time for that. And I want to thank you for your time as well. Thank you for joining me tonight. Joe Veldon. Let me slap your logo up there one more time. 7 Leaf Genetics. Thank you so much for being here with me. So shameless plugs or shout outs or shit we missed.
I got nothing, Caleb. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I just enjoy chatting with the community and showing what we do. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's all a learning experience. So the more information we can give people, it's the better it is. So we have an opportunity to make a pretty good community here. So let's not fuck it up.
All right, I'm gonna do it one more time. Joe Veldon, 7 Leaf Genetics. I am your host, Caleb Teske, reminding you that the devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print.